There we go. Hopefully it'll still play for you guys. I'm not sure. Properties. Okay, it's default. Cool. Properties. Let's see if this works. If not, I have to wait until my headphones charge. Actually, that's not even getting me. Hold up. Hold up, hold up, hold up. Hold up, wait a minute. All right, everybody. I'm just getting a couple things set up really quick, so just bear with me as I get those things situated in the background. There we go. That's all I want. Perfect. It should be in the background there. All right, just give me 1 second. Just need to adjust my fan. I'm gonna put that on ultra low over here. Kind of keep it underneath me so we don't die of heat in this room. Alrighty, everybody. What is up? What is going on? This is, of course, your boy Bernie here on the charge, giving you some NBA kind of technical analysis, news and rumors, and also basketball opinion. Emphasis on the technical analysis. Again, still going to kind of be the same usual stream, kind of talk about, of course, we're going to talk about many different things. The first thing we're going to talk about is this LeBron James, LA Lakers situation, you know, what's going to be going on with that. But more importantly, kind of talking about how the West is going to shape up. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about LeBron, and then we're also going to kind of go into a little, I want to make Fridays, are you switched back to your actual name? What's up, BOA? How you doing, man? I think you were here the last stream. How you doing, man? I know this is kind of late, 'cause I know you're from the Chicago area. So I'm sorry that these are kind of later streams, but I kind of want to get into also not only the LeBron James, who's going to come out of the West, but I also kind of want to talk about my coaching history and how I got into it, and kind of talk about that. I want to make Fridays a little bit more personable and kind of get you into kind of what I love about basketball as not only just a fan of the game, but also someone that is trying to learn to become knowledgeable in the game in terms of, you know, learning my own intuitions, learning what I learned from basketball, but also, you know, becoming the coach that I think that a lot of young players need in today's day and age. I feel like there's a lot of coaches that have kind of an old school mentality or just don't really care about the kids as much. And so, you know, as kind of being the role models and father figures, if you will, of these kids, I think it's a very important job to actually, you know, kind of talk about that stuff. So, enough of the sappy stuff. I know you guys are not as interested in that as you are like the Western Conference, who's going to come out of that. But we will be talking about that last on the charge. But nevertheless, like I said, this is, of course, your boy Bernie here. And like I said, we're going to talk about LeBron James and the LA Lakers. Yesterday was kind of a sad day because I had the Lakers actually in the championship. And we'll kind of switch over to the live scene really quick. I had the LA Lakers winning the game. I had them, honestly, I thought that they had enough firepower, enough juice to get themselves in the game and get themselves going. Let me make sure I'm not like blasting my headphones here. Or not my headphones, but just this sort of. Huh. Oh, that's why. Okay, cool. So anyway, just kind of going again to the same situation here. You know, LeBron James and the LA Lakers lost last night to the Phoenix Suns in a very good game for the Phoenix Suns and kind of an overall great series. I thought the Phoenix Suns really gave the Lakers a run for their money. And again, if we look at the NBA math for everything, we'll kind of go into that sort of detail. But just from a perspective of what I saw in yesterday's game, I really was a little disappointed in the way that the Lakers played last night. I thought with the way that the Lakers played in game 5, I thought this would be the game where it's like, okay, LeBron's going to take over. He's probably going to have to take over for Anthony Davis because Anthony Davis, unfortunately, just got hurt again. And so it was going to be one of those games where LeBron's had to take over. But instead, Anthony Davis decided to play. And, you know, as someone who was a fan of the Boston Celtics and had to deal with the Isaiah Thomas situation, I thought that it was a bad move on someone's part to let him play that game. Oh, dope. All right, Justin. Yeah. I'll make sure to... I'm going to start thinking about actually cutting up my streams in terms of actually cutting them into clips so that way you guys can watch like certain sections of it. You know, I see a lot of YouTubers that I watch that live stream kind of do the same thing. I just think that would probably be a better fit for the channel. It's just I need to become a little bit more proactive in that and not be as lazy. I will admit to you, I'm a little lazy when it comes to like just cutting up the... I love cutting up basketball film, but when it comes to YouTube, it's not really my cup of tea. Well, it is my cup of tea, but it's not my favorite. But just kind of going into everything. Yo, what's up, Will? LeBron should go to Denver. I've said this for years. Yeah, so we'll kind of get into it. Just kind of talking to Justin here, but yeah. Anyway, going into what we're talking about today, guys. You know, I thought that the Lakers this year was a very up and down team. Obviously, the injuries to Anthony Davis at the beginning of the season with the tendinosis, the LeBron James ankle injury, it definitely was not a recipe for the Lakers to really, I would say, contend. And I think, and as much as this sounds like a big excuse, and I know that a lot of LeBron James haters or people that are like, oh, you keep defending LeBron James, I really thought that adequate rest was really needed for these guys. I mean, especially when it comes to kind of the break in between the championship from last year to where the season began this year. It definitely was a bit of a marathon for all these guys. And so I will preface it by saying I think that the Lakers probably should have rested a little bit more, or definitely should have opted to say, hey, you know what? We're actually just going to rest our players and not really play any type of games. Because I think that's kind of the way that I see the Lakers should have went. But at the end of the day, it is what it is. We're here now, and the Lakers officially got eliminated in the playoffs. And so, as we kind of continue on to this episode of The Charge, we look at it. We look at the situation. We're gonna look at the ESPN and kind of looking at like what the box score was, and then we'll really get into the math and analytics of everything. Obviously, we saw that the Kawhi Leonard and the Clippers absolutely destroyed. Well, they didn't really destroy, but they definitely got the win over the Dallas Mavericks after Luka, I think, had a pretty sub-performed game. I mean, he didn't really play very well, in my opinion. But nevertheless, we go to the box score of this Phoenix Suns LA Lakers game, and we really look at it. We see here the thing that I noticed the most in here, in my opinion, is really looking at, you know, they got a lot out of Jay Crowder. Jay Crowder is known as a three-point shooter. He's been a little finicky at times, but man, he really hit the nail on the coffin with the way that he was shooting the threes last night. 6 for 9. Ayton again played a pretty tremendous role for some aspects. He didn't really play well, I believe, last night's game, but he really played well this series, really going against Anthony Davis. Whether Anthony Davis was healthy or not, DeAndre Ayton was was one of the huge reasons. And of course, Chris Paul, you can't deny his ability to play the game. And you know, this could be the year that Chris Paul does it, but unfortunately, he got hurt this series, and it's really going to be interesting to see if Chris Paul can come back from this injury and really play up to his potential, especially with these teams coming up. They're going to be playing the Denver Nuggets soon, and that one's a toss-up, in my opinion. I mean, there's a lot of things that could happen in that series, and we'll talk about kind of what I predict from the West when we go into that part of the section of the stream. But, you know, nevertheless, we look over here. Anthony Davis only played 5 minutes, didn't really do too much, couldn't really do too much because of a groin injury, and you could see when he was playing, it was not the same Anthony Davis that we were used to seeing, right? It was Anthony Davis that was, like, hobbled a little bit, didn't really seem like he could go, but, you know, I think the one thing I will say that the media does a really bad job of is this sort of like hypocrisy that it's like, yo, Anthony Davis, man, he's not playing very well. He's always in street clothes. He's not really doing too much. But then when he does play, it's like a completely different story. It's like, well, the trainer shouldn't have, it's the same thing with Isaiah Thomas. It's like, oh, well, the trainer should have not let him play and stuff like that. But in my opinion, it's like he probably should have not played that game because it was going to be a huge risk of an Isaiah Thomas-esque injury that could happen to him. And I really don't want to see that happen again to another superstar or even another player because we saw what happened to Isaiah Thomas. I know Anthony Davis is a little bit of a different case because he is, 6'11", but at the same time, he's a player that does get injured a lot, whether it's, I think it's just the reality of Anthony Davis at this point of his career. He gets injured a lot, so it's like you need to make sure that you manage his minutes and you also manage kind of the workload that he goes under. Because you can't tell me, like, when you look at a guy like Anthony Davis, that he shouldn't be like Jokic, or he shouldn't be like all these other passing bigs, or even Joel Embiid for that matter. Well, Joel Embiid also has his share of history injuries as well. But, I think Anthony Davis should be in that mold or in that conversation of best big. But unfortunately, it's a combination of his play style, but it's also a combination of his injuries. And that's the reason why it's kind of going to be interesting to see what the Lakers do in free agency. Because they have a lot of guys to either re-sign or really just get rid of. Because I felt like they were very top-heavy in this. When we really look at it, Kyle Kuzma didn't really do anything. And I've been really disappointed in Kyle Kuzma. Again, I remember making videos on him, and it was really starting to become a debate whether it was Brandon Ingram or Kyle Kuzma. I think I still went Ingram in that matter because I felt like he still had a lot of potential. I still think he does. But with Kuzma, I know what I'm getting. But unfortunately, it's just not the great what I'm getting type of moment from him. 1 of 6. And I think that he can do a lot better. But the problem is LA the reason why he's not playing very well? Is he too distracted in LA? And again, I think anybody in their 20s would be distracted in LA. I'm not saying Kuzma's the only one. Like, I would be distracted in LA if I lived there in my really early 20s. I'm sure my friends would obviously be distracted in their early 20s being in LA. I just think that's where Kyle Kuzma kind of falls a little bit apart. In my opinion, is just I think Kyle Kuzma needs a change of scenery, whether that's in Charlotte, whether that's in a different area. But unfortunately, he does have that contract that he just re-signed, which again, if I'm the Lakers, I don't know why I'm doing that unless I'm using that as a trade bait to get another player, which I said that's probably what they did it for. When I originally did the live stream, I remember talking about that contract. That's kind of where I was going with it. Another guy that I kind of feel bad for is Montrez. Trez, I think that he really didn't. He had a great start of the season, but then kind of petered off a little bit towards the end of the season. Even the playoffs, as you saw, that he was not really used as much. It really was a little frustrating to see that. Trez, I thought, was kind of like that nice piece that the Lakers added, that they took from the Clippers, and it was going to be a W for them. And it ended up being an L, and now they're out of the playoffs. I think Caruso had a very subpar year this year. I thought that between looking at kind of his stats and kind of what he was doing this year, I really thought that he didn't really play as well as he should have. I kind of want to look at the career stats in his couple seasons. I mean, this year, his 2018-2019 season was probably his best. But even last year, I thought he did a lot more. But this year, I didn't really get that same Caruso energy that I usually get from him. And it's just really, I don't know what it is about Caruso this year. He just didn't really have it this year. And I don't know why. I don't know why that was kind of the thing there. But, at the end of the day, I was not really impressed with Caruso in that aspect. And again, I'm just talking kind of eye test, and then we'll go into like the analytical stuff of what I saw from the LA Lakers. I think the biggest disappointment and the biggest bust signing for the LA Lakers was actually Wesley Matthews. I think as a guy that really did well for the Dallas Mavericks, to what he was able to do this year, it just wasn't enough and wasn't what the Lakers actually needed from him. They wanted that 3-and-D guy, and he just really didn't do it this year. For some reason, I don't know if it's the pressure of playing with LeBron. I don't know what it is. You know, Jay Crowder kind of fell to the same type of pressure. I think maybe Wesley Matthews is in that same vein where it's like he might have had a lot of pressure to be playing with LeBron James or even just playing on the Lakers itself. Because, you know, playing on the Lakers, playing on these big name franchises that have had history, you have to play at your optimal best. I just didn't really feel that Wesley Matthews throughout his career compared to what he did this year. I thought it was a little bit of a disappointing season from him. And I really thought that he could have done a very good job. But at the end of the day, it's just kind of one of those things you look at it and you're like, all right, we'll see what happens with it. But, you know, I think that when I look at a guy like Wesley Matthews, definitely did not contribute to where I thought he would. And I thought, you know, kind of the players that they added, you know, you got Andre Drummond with the DMP. That's kind of a little bit of a situation where it's like, I'm not really too sure about that one. And again, you know, it kind of, you kind of look at it and you're like, I don't know what I'm seeing here. But, you know, enough of me babbling on about this stuff. I really want to look at the analytical part of it and really look at, you know, TPA, which is total points attributed to. We look at kind of what the Lakers were able to do. We look at the TPA versus the minutes that they played. And again, I'll show you guys here. Again, LeBron, obviously going to be top tier. The problem is the other guys that you had on your team. I mean, when you have Montrez kind of in this area, and even like looking at the offensive contribution or total points that they've added, Caruso and Kuzma are at the bottom. KCP, again, at the bottom. Anthony Davis, you know, a little bit better, but the problem is that because he was injured, he wasn't able to contribute as much as I think he should have. You know, Dennis Schroeder, a guy that was demanding $100 million for a contract, I mean, he's negative in the TPA category. So it's like, you look at it, it's kind of like the total points, you know, looking at the offensive points, you know, versus defensive points. I mean, we can even look at this graph here, which is more of a defensive graph. Defensive points saved versus offensive points saved. And you look at it, and you see LeBron James over here. You got defensive points saved from Marc Gasol. You got Anthony Davis here. But then you look at the rest of the squad, you know, Kuzma and Caruso just couldn't do it. They couldn't handle the pressure. And you see here, that's the reason why their offensive points added was in the negatives. Justin, you said, seems like Wesley Matthews hasn't been the same player since he left Portland. Yeah, I agree with you. He just hasn't been the same player, and it's just kind of one of those things you look at it, and it's like, I don't know. Like, there's always, I think Cuff the Legend, if you guys don't know him, I would honestly follow him. He's actually a really good follow, and just kind of as a coach and also as a lady expert advice, I definitely think that you should take his advice on the basketball stuff. The lady stuff, it's up to you. But I do think he gives some really solid advice in that category. But nevertheless, you look at the offensive, you know, kind of production from here. You look at the defensive points saved. I mean, you look at what LeBron has to deal with here. LeBron is at the tippy top. I don't know if you guys can see. He's like all the way up here at about, I believe, you know, defensive points saved at about like 12 or 13. Meanwhile, he's like 20 plus in offensive points added. And you really look at it, total points added, and it's just like you look at the numbers, you look at everything. Dennis Schroeder played terrible offense. Defensively wasn't too bad. Andre Drummond was somewhere in the middle. You know, KCP, another guy that got a big contract. Caldwell Pope, again, all the way at the end for offense. And it's like, I don't know how you expect any of these teams to win with a guy, or I don't know how you expect LeBron James to win with players that are like barely over on the right-hand side. I mean, Gasol, you know, minutes played, if we look back at the minutes played, it's closer to like 90 minutes. And for some of these other guys, they've been playing a lot more. I mean, Kuzma's been playing 130. Caruso been playing 120. And, you know, Caruso, obviously a great role player, great story, but I think the Lakers need a lot more. And Dennis Schroeder was supposed to be that answer, and he couldn't cut it. And it's just one of those things, you look at it, when you look at the stats, when you look at the numbers, it doesn't look good. Definitely not a great strategy for what I saw of the Lakers. And again, you know, I really think the Lakers need to go back to the drawing board. It's the big question of, you know, looking at the 2021 free agency class. free agents of the NBA, we look at them, and of course this is Sports Track. I see a bunch of bench guys. Exactly, Justin. There's like so many bench guys. No one that's really, in my opinion, going to add value to LeBron James, especially in this part of his career. Anthony Davis was supposed to be the guy to help him out. You could see, I want to really look. I can probably look at the last year's numbers compared to this year's numbers, but Anthony Davis was supposed to be that answer, but unfortunately, he just gets hurt too much to my liking, to where I think it really does affect him, and you're really going to see, how much LeBron James was playing with a really bad team. And I know that when it comes to guys like Skip Bayless and other LeBron James haters, Stephen A. Smith to a fault, the one thing that I do get frustrated with those guys is that they are so hypocritical in the way that they go after these NBA players. They're like, I think it's better to lose in the first round than go to the NBA Finals. And then once that does happen, look at how the narrative changes with that story. LeBron James, one of his worst moments in his career. LeBron James, I can't believe that this was the LeBron James of this year. He's washed and all this other stuff. And it's just like, I need you to pick a narrative and I need you to pick a story and stick with it, because right now you're talking to two ends out of your mouth. And it's like, do you want LeBron James to lose in the first round so it saves his legacy? Or do you want him to go to the NBA Finals where you're going to complain that it loses his legacy? Like, you need to decide what's what. And I don't want to go on too much of a rant here on that stuff, but I really do think that they really attack this guy for dumb stuff. It's ridiculous. Got First Take and all these other shows. I'm not going to make it any secret that I'm not a big fan of those shows anymore. Maybe in my early teens and maybe in my early 20s, I was a big fan of the shows because, of how just how outlandish they could be at times, but I'm not a big fan of it. Shannon Sharp, he's okay, but I think he has his moments where it's like, I'm not really messing with it. But I can't be mad at them if they're trying to make their money. But what I can be mad about is the fact that they just keep attacking players for no reason, or maybe not for no reason, but just kind of the name calling and stuff like that. It's not really necessary, but that's how they make their money. That's how they make their bread. And I hope Kwame Brown goes on the show with them and, kind of sets them straight. But nevertheless, the thing we're going to talk about here, right? LeBron James and free agency, what's going to be the next move for them? When we really look at this list, when we look at everything, Chris Paul obviously would be the number one guy, but I think that he's going to probably get another big contract before he officially retires. Kawhi Leonard, depending on how the season goes, I think he might leave. I think he could get a lot more money, even at 30 years old. Kyle Lowry could be another great point guard add. I think he's a really good player. DeMar DeRozan, I'm not so sure about that one. I mean, maybe you could get him. I'm not sure. Dennis Schroeder, definitely not going to use him. Evan Fournier, nah, not really worth the money. I think the only person that I would probably look at in this list would either be Tim Hardaway Jr., seeing if he can get like another 3-and-D guy with Tim Hardaway Jr., mostly 3 and offensive play possessions. But other than that, like I said, it's not really too much of a exciting roster of free agencies. I think Kyle Lowry could be an interesting ad, and maybe even DeMar DeRozan going back to LA, played at USC. I think he's from the area as well. I think he's from Compton, if I'm not mistaken. Let me make sure that DeRozan. I believe he is from Compton, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, he's from Compton, California. I think that would actually be a really cool ad, to go back to Cali, try to win a championship. I think that could be an interesting ad, but it doesn't really look like it's going to be that much of an interesting situation as it pertains to what I'm seeing in free agency. Like, I'm not too convinced with how the free agents are looking. Spencer Dinwiddie actually could be a pretty good player. I think that might be another great ad. Kind of like a replacement to Dennis Schroeder. I think that could be a good one. Lonzo Ball, we'll see what happens with him. I know that the Pelicans kind of have this franchise rights or like restricted free agents to see if they can't sign him. But, we'll see what happens. Again, this is just going to be super kind of casual. I think me and my boy Pete will kind of go really into depth at what the Lakers' next move should really be. But the reason why I kind of wanted to talk about it today is because I do think that a lot of people are giving LeBron James flack for a really bad Lakers roster. And I know people are going to say that's a cop out. People are going to say that's a bad take. It's not really good. Like, come on, man. Like, the Lakers are terrible. LeBron James played terrible. But as you tell by the numbers, he played just fine. It was his other teammates that really didn't step up. And that's kind of been the career of LeBron James. And it's a weird one. And in terms of certain players not coming up at the right time, I really think of those like J.R. Smith, Jay Crowder, kind of that Cleveland Cavaliers team when Kyrie left. I really think that team probably could have done a lot better, but they just didn't. But nevertheless, that's kind of what I'm saying here for the Lakers and Suns. And kind of just talking about this game. I thought, like I said, the Lakers kept it close at the end, but just couldn't come away because they couldn't make defensive stops. And you could tell by the math of the analytics, it just didn't really show that the Lakers were really wanting to win that game. But nevertheless, I think the story that we can really get into is really talking about the East and the West and kind of talking about who is going to come out of this and really, what is going to be the playoff implications, what's going to be, kind of what's the inclination, who's going to win the West. I think the West is going to be probably so crazy, but I think the Denver Nuggets potentially could be able to do it. I know they're missing Jamal Murray, but when I really look at their offensive firepower from Jokic, kind of Aaron Gordon, Morris, like there's a lot of players on that team that I could definitely see the Denver Nuggets really getting out of the West. Obviously, they're going to play the winner of this Dallas Mavericks series, and meanwhile the Phoenix Suns will be playing the winner of this, and then I think the higher seed, I believe, is who the Utah Jazz, or the lower seed is who the Utah Jazz will be playing. But I do think that the Phoenix Suns have a chance. They have a really solid roster. I mean, this is the first time in a while where Phoenix actually has a solid roster and a solid, kind of situation that's going on there in LA and in Arizona. The one thing that I am interested to see is going to be looking at the Utah Jazz. Like, are they able to kind of stop being pretenders and actually try and get the championship? Because to me, that's kind of been the biggest story for as I kind of move this out the way, that's kind of been the biggest story for them. It's just kind of like, what are they able to finally complete the conquest of actually getting to the championship? And to me, that's going to be the biggest question mark for them. It's like, are they finally ready to step up? And, analytics may say so, but something mentally for the Jazz is what's really concerning to me. And we'll see what happens, man. I'm really excited about this Western. We can talk about Dame Lillard, but I think I want to talk about that with my boy Pete and talk about that with the LA Lakers and other things like that. And, I do think that, as much as informal as this kind of live stream was, and, I kind of marketed it, kind of talk about, what the Lakers should do, what their moves should be. I definitely think they need to go to the drawing board because I think they need to really see if they can make a run next year. But I think that this is going to be a very competitive series. I mean, the Mavericks could potentially make it far depending on how Luka does in this first round against the Clippers. They just lost last night, or they lost tonight against the Clippers with Kawhi Leonard dropping like 45 points on them. They're going to really need to step up. It's a little concerning to me that the Mavericks haven't won at home. And then, I do think that that's kind of an alarming thing to see from a very young, talented team like the Dallas Mavericks. They really need to step up in that scenario because, in my opinion, in order for this Dallas Mavericks team to really get going, they need to not let off the gas. And I feel like that's the story of the Dallas Mavericks for these last couple of years is they have a beautiful first quarter. They have a beautiful second quarter. And then all of a sudden, the third quarter, it unravels. And then the fourth quarter, they have to come back to see if they can get back in the game. And then, boom, they lose. And I just don't think they take care of the ball well enough. And I just think as I look at them, and again, this isn't number-wise. It's just one of those things where it's going to be one of those things I'm just not really convinced. But I will see. Justin, you say, I feel like Donovan Mitchell, his career is going to be similar to Dame, superstar player drafted by a small market team, but failed to build a true contender around him. Sorry for getting off topic. Hey man, I want to talk about that as well. I kind of glanced over the Utah Jazz, and even kind of the Portland Trailblazers. Like I said, we'll talk about the Trailblazers with my boy Pete's on Wednesday. But as it pertains to Donovan Mitchell, I think what I see from Donovan Mitchell is a little bit different. I think Donovan Mitchell needs to be more efficient with his shots. I don't think that he's as efficient as he should be. And the reason why I say that is we kind of go to NBA math and really look at the story of Donovan Mitchell. And the reason why I want to do that is because, let me see if I can find it. And this is for this year. Just give it 1 second and it'll kind of show the numbers of it. See where Mitchell's at. Let's see here. You look at a guy like Donovan Mitchell again. OPA, total APA is 127. And when we look at kind of what the TPA is of everybody, I wish it would kind of show the numbers. Maybe if I expand it a little bit. There we go. If I expand a little bit, you can kind of see. When you look at his TPA, which is, his points, his offense, his defense, I mean, like I said, he is kind of in this category defensively. If we look at Donovan Mitchell, a minus 21 with a 149 offensive rating. So you can see here defensively, he just doesn't stack up to these other players. And when you are a superstar player, when you are a player that really adds value, I should say, or when you look at it, you need your players to step up in that situation. And the fact that he's really at the bottom, like not near the bottom, but when he is below Paul George, when he is below DeMar DeRozan, when he's below his teammate Mike Conley, that's got to tell you something about his TPA. That's got to really tell you, that he really should be a little bit more efficient than he really is. I know offensively he's so gifted. I mean, if we look at just the stats in general with Donovan Mitchell and just kind of look at that stuff, we look at Donovan Mitchell's stats. We'll kind of go to, where is it? Stats, not status. We look at his stats and we go to Basketball Reference and really kind of look at his numbers. This year was not his best year, I would say. It's about, I mean, he had a really good, I can't lie. He had a really good season. He was a little bit more efficient, but I thought 3-point wise, I thought he could have done a little bit better. 38%, it's not bad. But there were some games that I saw this season where he was like, 10 for 32 or something like that, where he was like 10 for 23 or like 7 for 23 with 23 points. It was kind of something like that, where I don't think that his efficiency was definitely at his best. I don't know. It's just one of those things that I feel like if Donovan Mitchell wants to take the next step to become that superstar, I think he needs to improve the efficiency. And, this year I think he was a little bit more efficient in some categories. But again, when it comes to just field goal in general, shooting a lot more shots, shooting about 9 shots a game, or that should be just field goals. I mean, field goals a game, he's averaging, 20 shots a game, which as the number one option, that is your job, to shoot 20 shots a game. But I do think that he could be a little bit more efficient, especially in the field goal area where he's, trying to go there. 1 point per shot is not very good. Yeah. It's just kind of like you need to be a little bit more efficient. And again, that is just a number that came off the top of my head. But when you really look at kind of like the advanced stats and really look at his kind of his advanced stats, when we really look at everything, it's just kind of one of those things, Turnover ratio, I want to do the regular season because that's kind of more important. 1.88, that's okay, but as a guard, I would like a little bit more. Um, you look at the total, the efficiency field goal is not bad. True shooting 56, it's not terrible. Usage rate, pace 99. I'm not sure what pi is, to be honest with you. There's a lot of stuff that I'm still trying to get used to when it comes to this stuff. Um, but yeah, when I really look at everything, when I really kind of notice about Donovan Mitchell is that I think he could be a little bit more efficient. And I know that this year the numbers and the stats will tell you that he was a very efficient player. But again, I don't want my players shooting sub 45% from the field. I know that 3-point percentage wise, he's awesome. He's good. But when it comes to, like I said, the field goal percentage of just kind of like inside the hoop or inside the 3-point line, you have to be a little bit more effective than that. And I wish I could see maybe they have his shooting chart. And really look at kind of his shooting chart for this year. I think maybe it'll have here in StatMuse. Oh, come on. There we go. And let me make sure that in this one, you're kind of seeing the whole picture here. So you can kind of see like what we're looking at when it comes to Donovan Mitchell. Again, I think looking at his stats, looking at the numbers, 38% from the corner, again, very solid in here. But then when it comes to kind of the rest of it, it's very spotty. And this is like, especially on this right-hand side of the hoop, it's not good. And, I think he knows that. He needs to work on it. Layup wise, 51%. That's not as good compared to the league, which is 58. So again, it's kind of one of those things you look at it and it's just like, you're not sure if that's kind of what you want from Donovan Mitchell at this point. Shot 43% overall and 38 from the three in 53 games this season. I just don't think that it's not as good. I mean, 3-point wise, like I said, very good player. It's just the other stuff to me. It's just kind of like, I think Mitchell could work on that. And, we'll see what happens with him. We'll see if the Jazz can build a team around him. I think the Jazz, to me, have a better direction than I feel like the Trailblazers. And the reason why I say that, and I'll just kind of say this a little bit before I kind of move on to my coaching segment. When it comes to this, when I see it, I think the reason why I think the Blazers are in a world of trouble, they just fired Terry Stotts. The reason why I think that they're worse off is because we've seen this Damian Lillard, CJ McCollum story not work. And when we look at the math, and I'll show you guys on Wednesday the math of the Portland Trailblazers, like CJ McCollum's offense was absolutely terrible this postseason, or not even this postseason. Like offensive wise, he was okay, but defensively, he just didn't really add much. And it's just like when you see where McCollum's at in the spectrum of the TPA, he really didn't do as much as I think that the Blazers really needed from him. And like I said, I think the frustrating thing to me when I really look at everything, when I really kind of pay attention to, what's going on for the Blazers, it's like I think Damian Lillard is tired of the way that the thing is going. They want to upgrade. They want to get better. And I think they're just tired of the way that I think Dame is just tired of the way that things are going right now. And when you really look at things, when you really analyze things, when you really look at it, I would be frustrated too, in my opinion. I would be frustrated with the way that I was playing. I'd be frustrated with the way that my teammates have been playing. You are the number one superstar. You're the best player. The problem is no one wants to go to Portland. I know that I have a lot of Portland fans in my mentions. I know I have a lot of Portland friends that are my friends. But the reality is that no one wants to go to Portland. It's just, unfortunately, it's just too small of a market to really attract the big superstars to sign there. They can get kind of the guys that don't really have too much of, kind of the glitz and glamour, but that's who you need to win these championships. And unfortunately, I just don't think that the Blazers are going to do it unless it's a trade. And I'm not sure if Damian Lillard wants to be there for trades. And, it's like, how many times do you have to do the same old Terry Scott, CJ McCollum, Damian Lillard route, which has been done for a couple years. Even like with Nate McMillan was there as the coach. It was the same story and the same song and dance with those players as well. It was, those guys would be there. They would get to the playoffs every year, but they wouldn't be able to do what they needed to do. I know one year they made it to the Western Conference Finals, but they didn't really get to where they needed to. I thought they could have done a lot better, especially that Western Conference Finals where they went against the Warriors. I know the Warriors were a special team. They're an elite team, but I expected a little bit more of a fight from the Trailblazers, and I just don't think I got that from the whole team. I definitely got that from Dame, and I got a little bit from CJ, but I need the whole team to step up in that category. And again, we'll see what happens. I think the Jazz could do a little bit better. I think they have a little bit better of not only just marketing, but I think that they can attract some of the stars. I know Utah, again, has a reputation for not so nice things. But we'll see what happens. But I do think that the Jazz are in a better position. They had, they live up to the expectations. They play to the small market role. They get the players that no one really wants or he really talks about, and those guys are able to play and get themselves going. I thought Mike Conley was a great piece to add to that Jazz team, and it's showing you in the playoffs right now how well he's been doing for this team. And then kind of the final thing, and before we kind of get going, let me know in the comment section down below, what do you guys make of these stories? What do you guys make of what we were talking about here? Again, we talked about LeBron James and the LA Lakers. We also talked about who might come out of the West. I have the Denver Nuggets coming out of the West. And the other question is, Damian Lillard, Donovan Mitchell. Is Donovan Mitchell the same as Damian Lillard? Justin, I love the question. Thank you for kind of getting the brain going, getting the engaging going here on the charge. I really appreciate that. And again, guys, you can leave yourself a comment. You can leave yourself a like and subscribe here on the charge. Again, bringing you the latest NBA news and rumors and basketball opinions. Make sure that we continue to grow this community. I want this to be one of the best basketball communities, whether we're talking numbers, whether we're kind of doing news and rumors, kind of talking, without any of that stuff. I want you guys to be contributing to this just as much as me, because, as much as I would love to have this be all about me, I really want it to be about everybody in the community, basketball wise, whatever your expertise level is, whether you are a coach, player, just a casual fan. I want to get your opinions on it, because again, it is interesting to get other people's perspective on different stories and different topics. Now, on to kind of the final stage of today. And of course, the final stage of today is going to be kind of my story as to how I became a head coach. Or not really. Well, I guess I was a head coach this year, but how I got into coaching. And I'll play a little bit of music in the background while we're doing that. Let me put on my headphones really quick so we can kind of make sure that the music is good, get the vibe going. Give me 1 second, guys. Let's see here. Hopefully you guys can hear that. Okay. Just want to make sure it's not, for some reason, like the... Hello? All right. Anyway, I'm probably just going to mute this. Anyway. For some reason it won't work, so it is what it is. All right. So kind of going into my background, of course, as you know, it's me, Bernie. I would say a couple years ago, I just finished college at the University of Utah. Nice, man. Yeah, definitely send them out and kind of share it, and let's kind of get this channel going, man. I really want to get to 1,000 subscribers, man. I really want to do it by the end of this year. And I'm hopefully going to put a little bit more time into it this summer. As soon as, kind of my job ends. Of course, I work at a high school. So again, a couple years finishing out of the University of Utah. I was filming. I was kind of doing my thing there. Really trying to get into the coaching role. I was really into videography. I still am. And it's one of my favorite things because I think you can learn a lot from film that I think people don't, they underestimate their ability sometimes. Like when you look at some things, you're like, well, no, I did this. I remember doing this, but then the film will show something different. And I really love using film as a really great coaching opportunity, a really great teaching tool for some of these players. You know, sometimes you need to look at yourself, whether it's in the mirror, you know, with your weightlifting, or whether it's with the video camera seeing how you play. I think it's an important role, and you know, it's the reason why coaches love film. And the clickbait thumbnail test for subs. Yeah, you know, I'm not really a big fan of the clickbait. You know, there's some that I may have clickbaited back in the day, but you know, to this day, while Justin's got me on a tangent, to this day, that Lonzo new jump shot video is not a clickbait. That jump shot was different. I showed it in the clips, and people in the comment section were like, dude, this is clickbait. He still has the same jumper. It's like, no, he has a different jumper. You could tell. But anyway, that's besides the point. You know, kind of going back to the film stuff of it, right? I really use film to really teach kids how the game should be played because, you know, some kids, like I said, they don't really understand the concept of it. And like I said, you know, being in that role model, father figure role, you want to show your players, you know, how to really kind of read the film and really understand, you know, what we're looking for. Basketball is a game of decisions, just like life, right? You know, life has a lot of decisions to make. So does basketball. And it's about knowing when to turn those decisions to manipulate them in a way where you can manipulate the outcome into your favor. So, for example, one example I like to use, and let me see if I can get a whiteboard. Kind of a whiteboard drawer. Let's see here. Let's see, this is make a whiteboard. Hopefully everything's good. Okay, cool. So again, let me go back here. So kind of drawing in court, right? You know, for the most things that you notice when it comes to offense, when it comes to anything, is you want to make sure that I really wish I had like an iPad adapter to this. Is to really attack and just kind of realize the situation when it's at hand, right? You know, really attacking the middle, creating advantages for your teammates, so that way the defense, when you have it here, you attack the middle, you can draw your guys here, which then allows here the guy that's guarding here has to make this decision, and then this guy can pass here, and this guy can shoot. Or again, there's a lot of different decision makings that goes on, and the best way, kind of like I said, to describe it here is just to really show you like there's a lot of decisions to make, not only just how to use things in the offense, not only how to use the tools that you're given, use the offense to help you create situations for yourself. There's other things that you have to do for your teammates and also for the team. And so, you know, I kind of got my eyes open to that a little bit last year and this year a little bit more. And again, this is more so like kind of the technical stuff of it. But again, going back to my story, you know, I think kids can really use film to learn it. And so, anyway, going back to where I was at the University of Utah, worked for the football team, worked a little bit for the basketball team. You know, I was there when Kyle Kuzma was there. It was a lot of fun to really go behind the scenes and understand how coaches use film, you know, coaches meetings, what they talked about, you know, looking at practice, what was going on in that situation. And so I really loved every aspect of it. But the one thing I never thought I was going to do was coach high school basketball. And that's where my friend comes in handy. Ben, if you're watching, how you doing, man? My friend Ben, probably one of the greatest guys I could ever meet. Genuinely a happy dude, genuinely wants everybody to succeed, and you know, that's something that you can never take away from him. And it's really appreciative of him actually giving me a chance to be like, hey man, you should try this coaching thing. Try high school. You know, he just recently got hired as one of the I believe he got hired as the C team coach for that year. And this was a year where this high school had 4 teams. It used to be a thing back in the day, and it's really different now just because of Title IX and the way everything works. Every squad has 3, right? But this squad had 4, and it lasted until actually the second year we were there. So it was C team, then you had like the sophomore JV team, you had the regular JV team, and then you had the varsity, of course. And so I ended up helping coach the C team, and he actually ended up going to the sophomore team because they were kind of strapping for coaches. Some coaches left from this previous year, and so they were kind of strapped for it. And they were like, and he was like, "Hey, I have a friend that might be interested in coaching," and he's like, the head coach now that I know, shout out to Gav. He was really supportive of that decision and really supportive of me growing into this role. I really appreciate both those guys, both Ben and Gav, for really helping me create my coaching, career that it is right now. But nevertheless, I really thought about it because I played high school basketball. I played 3 years. I got cut my freshman year. It's a story that I still use to this day, cheesily, right? Of kind of like the underlooked player, a little bit smaller than the rest of the guys. So they're like, well, I don't think he really fit on the squad. But I use that as motivation. I kind of tell my players this, you got to use if someone doesn't think that you're good enough, you should use that as motivation. And to not let it, and maybe even they're not doing that to really be critical of you. Maybe they just think that you need a little bit of extra time to work on your stuff, and then maybe you may make the team next year. But as I like to remember it as a player, of course, and kind of my own ego, I used it as motivation to be like, man, I can't wait to prove this mother effer wrong. I can't wait to like go out there, show them that I can actually play the game, show them how valuable I can be as an asset to the team. And it was probably the best thing that ever happened to me, to be honest with you, getting cut. Because I think at a young age, it's definitely good to face adversity. And this isn't really adversity. This is like, there's a lot of people that, are homeless, or we have the stuff overseas that's going on in the world. Really the poorest of the poorest countries are dealing with adversity. This is like nothing compared to that. But in a basketball adversity sense, right? I was like, I just got caught from the basketball team. This is my first time where nothing went my way, right? Everything in life's not going to go your way. And I did that thinking, I didn't really get the results I wanted. Let me work my butt off to get there. And I, of course, had Bryant, who was also cut as well that year, and he really kind of motivated me too. We went to the local like middle school court outside just to work on our game. Played 21, did all those type of things, and then the next year, I made the JV team, and it was awesome. It was great. As kind of like the defensive stopper of the team, kind of to be there in front of guys. I really loved it and enjoyed it. And then it came to the varsity side of things, and that's where I felt like it was very political. It was very, in a sense, I was also at a Catholic school, so recruiting is kind of like a thing there. And I don't hate any of the players that, I ended up, just not really playing my senior year. I played a little bit in the summer. I played a little bit in the fall, and played a little bit in the winter too. But I really thought my coach didn't really care for the interests of me and really my teammates. He didn't really make us better. And I really think that's just due to the fact that I don't think that he was taught the right way of coaching. And I think that if he understood the way of coaching, I think he could have done a much better job. But nevertheless, I decided to kind of stop that, playing, and then it just it frustrated me. That was like the second time, you deal with adversity, and I was frustrated with it. I mean, I think anybody would. But 10 years later, coming back in my early 20s, back to Seattle after finishing the University of Utah, Ben giving me an opportunity, Coach Gav, also giving me an opportunity to really kind of say like, I can show these kids how it's really done, because I really don't want them to deal with a coach like the coach that I had. And I think that really got me going and was like, you know what? I really think I can make a difference, not only just on the basketball court, because basketball court aside, I know my stuff. I've watched basketball so much. I've understand plays. I understand the nuances of basketball so much more now, thanks to Gav, and thanks to Ben, but really to Gav, the way that he kind of runs things at his program, and it's honestly amazing to see how he runs it, and it's really eye opening and really inspiring to be like, wow, if I was to do that one day, I would want to do it this way because I think that's the best way to get results. And to really be involved in these kids' lives, like I said, as a father figure, or as like someone as like an older role model. Um, oh, Justin, let me see here. I got cut 8th grade. Whoops. Hey, that doesn't really do that. Hold up. Why is it? Oh, okay, that's why. Okay, cool. Let me move this over. Whoa, why is this so small? Let me take this out. Sorry, Justin, I'm gonna read your comment in just a second. I keep messing this up. And anyway, I'm not even on anything here. There we go. So he said, I got cut in 8th grade. The guy that made it over me was the son of the athletic director. How my first exposure to corruption. Yeah, and I mean, I think that's just kind of the stuff that we have to deal with, not only just like in sports, but politics and whatever it is. Like, there's always going to be people that have those sort of benefits. I mean, it is what it is at this point. I mean, I'm not really too upset with it. It's more about how do I succeed? I know I know I can definitely do a lot better. And so and that's the reason why, like I said, I think a lot of these kids need a lot of father figures and really just role models from men. I think that's kind of what's missing. Honestly, in today's world, is just like strong men leadership. I feel like we're too divisive at times. We're too upset. Where I think we need to start, talking in rational voices again. I have my moments coaching, right? I think everybody does, where you kind of get hot headed. You're like, how is that a foul, and other stuff like that. But I really think you do need male role models in your life. I think they are the most quintessential part of how to turn boys into men. Like, you really want that growth and maturity. And so that has kind of been my kind of revelation as I kind of go from basketball, especially for high school. I think maybe NBA it's a little different because they are men. But maybe even college too. I think college could be the same way. It's like you want to create a culture. You want to teach these boys like the right way to do things, to work hard, to make great choices, to work hard in terms of if something didn't go your way, it's not the ref's fault. It's not anybody else's fault. It just happens, whether it's bad luck, whether it's on you, or unfortunately, sometimes the opponent gets better of you. And I think it's by using that opportunity to grow and develop, it's how you become a better man. And just become a better person in general, whether it's boys basketball, girls basketball, women's or men's. That's how you become a better person through adversity. That's how you stay hungry. And so when I really look at everything, when I see that, you know, as I begin coaching and even kind of going into I believe this is my 4th year coaching, or maybe my 5th year. This is going to be my 5th year coaching, but I just finished my 4th year coaching, and it was a lot of fun, man. I actually got invited to go back to C team coaching because I was the assistant for varsity the last year. But since we were low on bodies and COVID happened, I kind of filled that role of C team, and so I took on that role and I loved it, man. Um, like I said, I'm trying to create a culture of turning boys into men. And I think that's kind of like a lesson plan that we actually teach at the high school, as part of like our basketball stuff. But, I want to teach the other stuff, whether that is also taxes, also working on stocks and, kind of investing, like, and stuff like that. Like, I'm not saying like I'm not trying to be there to be their financial advisor, but what I am saying is to start looking at that stuff because sometimes these schools, they don't really teach you that stuff. They teach you like algebra and geometry, and that's great and all, but I really think I really think that I think we really need to start changing the high school curriculum, and I know that a lot of people have talked about it. And this is just me also working at the high school too. I feel like kids are sitting way too much in class. They have to sit there for like 45 minutes. Sometimes it's an hour 30, depending if you have like a block schedule where it's like 2 4 6, and then you have 1 3 5 7. Like I think that is also something that needs to change. And so the thing that like I said, uh, kind of going back to the coaches part of it is like I think that's kind of the direction that we need to go in, because I really think that teaching players and teaching them like the way of life is going to be a lot better. But basketball wise, I find it so enjoyable, teaching skills, teaching decision making. I think decision making, if you are a coach in training or if you are a coach that's going into it, I think decision making is the number one thing that you have to do with them, because I think you could drill. I think drilling it in terms of like this, if you see this read, this is what you have to do. I am fine with that. But to a point where it's like you can't drill it every time, because what that does is then it allows them to not really play the game, right? You're having them do like robotic moves. Like if like A doesn't happen, then B doesn't happen, and then you're like stuck like computing, where it's like decision making happens fast, just like in life. Not everything is gonna go the way of a dribble handoff cleanly, and you're gonna go around and score on that dribble handoff, right? There may be a bobble on the pass from the big man. There may be a bad dribble handoff type of stuff. The school system not designed to teach people about making money and multiply your money through investing. It teaches you how to be a slave in said system, in my opinion. Yeah, I mean, you're not wrong. I do think that they don't really teach kids, especially in the general education. I think that they do a terrible job. Where I feel like college does a little bit better, but it's a lot of money to go to college. Sorry about that. But yeah, I don't think that they really teach it until you go to the college route, and then there it's like, you're paying like $30,000 a year to go to college, and you put yourself in debt, and then you're like, basically, you owe money to the government for the next however many years it is, and I think avoiding debt is probably the best thing you can do. In terms of, unless you think that that's going to get you somewhere with that stuff. And you know, I think the biggest thing for me is just making sure you make the right decision, whatever it is. Um, trying to think what else where I was at with it. But yeah, I really want these players, offensive wise and just kind of defensive wise, to understand the concepts of things. I think when it comes to coaching, I think film is definitely very important to really point out to your players. I think just showing them on the film and having them, and again, decision making, same thing, right? Showing them and letting them look at it. And, I could say, like, hey, I want you to look at the film first, see what you see, and then let's compare notes and talk about, what I saw on the court out there. I think that's going to be the most important thing as an NBA coach. Not even NBA, just a coach in general. Whether you are coaching your son's fifth grade team, coaching a high school team, a college team, a European team, or even just a NBA team. Film is going to be the most important thing, and really, the camaraderie of just, getting everybody together is going to be the biggest thing. And yeah, and that's kind of the reason why I got into coaching. The reason why I got into it is because I felt that my coach didn't really prepare me for that the way that I think a lot of coaches should. Whether I got cut or whether I stayed on the team or whether I decided to play, I just don't think he set up his players for success in that way. And I think it was too much on the basketball side of it, but to a point where it's like it wasn't good basketball. It was kind of um, it wasn't good basketball, and I thought that there could have been a little bit more intricate parts into how to get into the offense. Defensively we were fine, but offensively I think is where you needed to get a little bit more intricate and really get kids engaged, because again, didn't really teach kids how to be a hooper. And this is like the 2000s where I felt like basketball kind of had this robotic feel to it, especially in the high school scene. But kind of getting away from the robotic stuff, seeing how kids are playing now, more free, more decision making. I think the more decision making you can make in a practice, in a game, and even just making game situations and scenarios for your players, that's going to do them wonders. And you know, I would love to go on more about it. I think I will, as like I said, my Fridays. I think what I want to do on Fridays is kind of have the last section of it be a coaching segment where it's like, you know, what to do with the player, you know, with frustration, what to do as a coach offensively, what do you like, what do you dislike. So I think that's what I'm going to leave Friday to. And I want to appreciate Justin. Again, shout out to you, man. Shout out to Eoy. Well, that's you, Justin. William in here, my girlfriend, Sean, PM, Josh, Pete, you know, all those guys and everybody that I just listed. I really appreciate you guys, you know, talking about this and really, you know, kind of going into it. But anyway, guys, like I said, this is going to be your boy Bernie here on The Charge, giving the latest NBA news and rumors and also basketball opinions with the emphasis on the new thing I'm going to add to it, which is technical analysis, adding stats into it to show you guys that it's more than just what you see on the eye test. It's also what you see on stats. It's what you see there. I feel like saying eye test is a lazy way of saying I didn't really pay attention. This is what I think. And so we'll see what happens, guys. You know, the charge is going. It's strong. And I think what I want to do, if you guys are interested, I'm going to probably put some merch out. Some charge merch. I'm going to make it official. See if you guys want it. See if you guys are interested. And if you are, let me know. And we'll make sure that that happens in the near future. Anyway, guys, like I said, my name is Bernie. Thank you once again for joining me here on The Charge. Like I said, bringing you the latest NBA news and rumors and also basketball opinions. Hopefully you guys enjoy the rest of your Friday night and the rest of your weekend. And we'll catch you guys on the next video. Peace.